Humanity's last fleet faced the entire galaxy alone. Part 1. The fleet that should not exist. The galaxy believed humanity was finished. For 3 long years, war had spread across the stars. One by one, human worlds had fallen. Powerful alien empires joined together to destroy Earth and every colony connected to it. No one knew exactly why the war had started anymore. At first, it was about territory, then it became about fear. Many alien leaders believed humanity was becoming too strong. So they decided to end humanity before it became a threat. Now only one human system remained, the Sol system. The birthplace of humanity, around Earth, thousands of ships waited in silence. Some belonged to the mighty Zorak Empire, others came from the Krell Dominion. Many more flew the flags of dozens of smaller civilizations. Together, they formed the largest fleet in galactic history. More than 200,000 warships surrounded the human home system. Every news network in the galaxy was broadcasting the event. Billions watched from distant worlds. Everyone expected the same ending. Humanity would finally disappear. Inside the flagship of the Coalition fleet, Supreme Commander Varric stood before a giant screen. Earth glowed brightly in the distance. The blue planet looked peaceful. It did not look like the last world of the dying species. Varric crossed his arms. "How many human ships remain?" he asked. An officer checked the latest reports. "Less than 8,000, Commander." A few officers laughed. The numbers were ridiculous, 8,000 ships against 200,000. The battle should last only minutes, Varric nodded. "Send the final surrender offer." The message was transmitted immediately, across every screen on Earth. The same words appeared: "Surrender now, this is your final chance." For several minutes nothing happened. The Coalition fleet waited. The galaxy waited, then a reply arrived. The message contained only one sentence: "Humanity does not surrender." The words spread across the galaxy within seconds. Many alien leaders shook their heads, others laughed. They believed humans were simply too proud to accept defeat. Commander Varric smiled. "Very well," he said. "Prepare all fleets for attack." Thousands of weapons began charging. Energy filled space like a growing storm. The final battle was about to begin. Then something strange happened. A sensor officer suddenly stood up. His face had turned pale. "Commander," he said, "I am detecting incoming ships." Varric frowned. "From where?" The officer looked confused. "Deep space." Beyond the outer edge of the system, the room became silent. That was impossible. The Coalition had blockaded every known route. No human fleet should be able to enter the system. How many ships? Varric asked. The officer checked again, then checked a third time. His hands were shaking. "Commander, I cannot get an exact count." The room filled with nervous whispers. "What do you mean you cannot count them?" "There are too many signals." Every officer turned toward the main screen. A distant area of space appeared. At first, nothing could be seen. Then small lights appeared. Thousands of them, no tens of thousands. The lights continued growing. More and more emerged from the darkness suddenly. Every alarm in the command center activated. New sensor reports flooded the system. The impossible was happening. An enormous fleet was entering the Sol system. Nobody understood how, nobody knew where it had come from. The ships moved in perfect formation. Rows stretched across space farther than sensors could measure. Massive battleships appeared among them. Some vessels were larger than entire cities. Others had designs never seen before. Even stranger, every ship carried human markings. The symbol of Earth was painted across their hulls. Shock spread through the Coalition command staff. One officer whispered, "Humanity only had 8,000 ships left." Another stared at the screen. "Then who are they?" Across the galaxy, viewers watched in disbelief. News anchors struggled to explain what they were seeing. Experts argued, military analysts searched old records. No one could find answers. The fleet did not exist in any database. It was as if it had appeared from nowhere. Inside Earth's command center, human officers watched silently. Unlike the aliens, they did not seem surprised. They looked calm, almost confident. At the center of the room stood Grand Admiral Ethan Ward. For years he had commanded humanity's surviving forces. Now he looked toward the giant screen showing the arriving fleet. A small smile appeared on his face. "The timing is perfect," he said. An officer beside him nodded. "The coalition is already panicking, sir, outside." The mysterious fleet continued advancing. Millions of lights filled the darkness. For the first time since the war began, hope returned to Earth. Meanwhile, aboard the coalition flagship, Commander Virex felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear, because deep inside, he knew one terrible truth. Humanity had been hiding something so large that it could change the entire war. Then a new transmission arrived. It came from the unknown fleet. The message contained only 6 words. "The last fleet has arrived," and before anyone could react, another signal appeared on every sensor in the system. A massive object was awakening behind the fleet. Something ancient, something enormous, and something that should not exist. Humanity's last fleet faced the entire galaxy alone. Part 2. The secret behind the last fleet. The Sol system fell silent. For several long seconds, nobody moved, nobody spoke. Every screen across the galaxy showed the same image. The mysterious human fleet floating in space. And behind it, something enormous was beginning to wake up. Commander Virex stared at the sensor reports. They made no sense. The object hidden behind the fleet was larger than any structure ever recorded. Its energy output was rising every second. Entire stars produced less power. "What is it?" Virex demanded. The sensor officers shook their heads. "We don't know, Commander." Fear slowly spread through the coalition flagship. For years they believed humanity was losing. For years they believed every secret had already been discovered. Now they realized they had been wrong, very wrong. Meanwhile, on Earth, Grand Admiral Ethan Ward stood inside the command center. He watched the giant object activate far beyond the fleet. Thousands of lights slowly appeared across its surface. Ancient metal structures unfolded from its sides. Huge rings began turning around its center. The entire object looked older than anything humanity had ever built. A young officer looked at the admiral. "Sir, after all these years, it's finally awake," Ward nodded. "Yes," the officer smiled nervously. "The galaxy is about to learn the truth." Far away, inside the Coalition Council chamber, emergency meetings had already begun. Alien leaders appeared on giant screens. Some looked angry, others looked worried. One leader slammed his fist onto a table. "Where did that fleet come from?" Another leader shouted, "Our spies never reported this." A third leader looked terrified. "What if humanity has been preparing for this war all along?" No one had an answer. For the first time since the conflict began, the coalition was confused. They no longer controlled the situation back in the Sol system. The mysterious fleet continued moving forward. Its formation remained perfect. There were more than 50,000 ships. Every vessel carried advanced weapons. Many were larger than coalition battleships. And none of them appeared damaged. They looked brand new, as if they had been waiting for this moment. Then another transmission arrived. This time it came directly from Grand Admiral Ward. His face appeared on every military screen. The galaxy watched carefully. "We offered peace many times," Ward said. "You answered with war. You destroyed our colonies. You burned our worlds. You hunted our people across the stars." The admiral paused. His expression remained calm. "But while you watched our defeat, you failed to notice what humanity was building." The transmission ended. The message immediately spread throughout the galaxy. Millions of people began asking the same question. What had humanity been building? The answer arrived only minutes later. The giant object behind the fleet suddenly released a powerful pulse. A wave of energy crossed the entire system. Coalition sensors immediately overloaded. Several ships temporarily lost power. Panic erupted across thousands of vessels. Then the object fully revealed itself. Gasps filled command centers everywhere. The structure was not a ship, it was not a station. It was something completely different, a giant artificial gateway. Its diameter stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Massive rings rotated around the glowing center. Ancient symbols covered its surface. Some symbols matched ruins discovered across the galaxy, ruins that were millions of years old. Scientists watching the broadcast could hardly believe it. Humanity had somehow found ancient technology, and they had kept it secret. Commander Varix felt his stomach tighten. He remembered old legends, stories about a vanished civilization. A species so advanced that entire star systems obeyed them. Most scholars believed the stories were myths. Now those myths were standing directly in front of him. Before anyone could react, the center of the gateway began glowing brighter. Energy surged through every ring. The entire structure shook space itself. Then something emerged at first. Only darkness could be seen, then a shape appeared. A massive ship slowly moved through the gateway. The vessel was unlike anything in known history. Its hull looked black as space. Blue energy flowed across its surface. Its length stretched for dozens of kilometers. Entire fleets could hide behind it. The giant ship entered the Sol system and stopped beside the last fleet. Silence followed. Even the coalition officers could not speak. The ship was too large, too powerful, too impossible. Then another ship appeared, and another, one by one. Humanity's last fleet faced the entire galaxy alone. Part 3. The shadow from the ancient age. The giant shadow inside the gateway continued moving. Every sensor in the Sol system focused on it. Human ships stopped advancing. Coalition ships stopped preparing weapons. For a brief moment, the war itself seemed forgotten. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What was coming through the gateway? Inside Earth's command center, silence filled the room. Grand Admiral Ethan Ward stared at the screen. Even he looked serious now. Several officers exchanged nervous looks. One finally spoke. "Sir, that object is larger than anything we expected." Ward nodded slowly. "I know." The glowing gateway shook again. Huge waves of energy spread across space. Several nearby ships were forced to move away. Then the shadow became clearer. A massive structure slowly emerged. At first, many believed it was another warship. But they quickly realized they were wrong. It was far too large. The object stretched hundreds of kilometers across. Ancient metal covered its surface. Strange towers rose from its body. Blue lights glowed inside countless openings. The structure looked older than civilization itself. Across the galaxy, billions watched in complete silence. Even news reporters stopped speaking. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. Commander Varix felt cold fear spreading through him. His instincts told him something was very wrong. Humanity had hidden far more than a fleet. They had hidden an entire chapter of galactic history. Then the object finally cleared the gateway. Every screen zoomed closer. Scientists immediately began studying it. Military analysts searched ancient databases. Historians compared it to forgotten records. Then one scientist made a shocking discovery. His report spread through every network within minutes. The symbols on the object matched ruins found on dozens of worlds, ruins left behind by the first ones. The mysterious civilization that disappeared millions of years ago. For centuries, nobody knew what happened to them. Some believed they destroyed themselves. Others believed they left the galaxy. Now another possibility appeared. Maybe they had never truly vanished. Inside the Coalition Council chamber, panic erupted. Several leaders demanded immediate retreat. Others refused. One leader stood and shouted, "If humanity controls first one technology, this war is already lost." Another leader slammed his hands onto the table. "We still outnumber them. A third leader shook his head. Not for long. Back in the Sol system, the ancient structure suddenly came alive. Thousands of lights activated across its surface. Energy readings exploded, then something unexpected happened. A signal was transmitted. The message spread across every ship. Human, alien, military, civilian. Everyone received it, for several seconds. Only static could be heard. Then a voice spoke. It sounded calm, ancient, powerful. Authorization recognized. The entire galaxy froze. The voice continued. Human guardians confirmed, inside Coalition command centers. Confusion spread instantly. Human guardians? What did that mean? Even many human citizens looked surprised. Only Admiral Ward remained calm. The ancient voice continued. Defense Protocol Omega is now active. Suddenly, hundreds of hidden sections opened across the giant structure. Massive weapons slowly emerged. Their size alone shocked military experts. Some cannons were larger than battleships. Others appeared designed for purposes nobody understood. Then a new warning alarm echoed through Coalition fleets. Thousands of sensor operators began shouting at once. New contacts had appeared, millions of contacts. Far beyond the edge of the Sol system, Commander Virax stared at the reports. His face turned pale. "No," he whispered. "This cannot be happening." One officer looked up. "Commander?" Virax pointed at the screen. The officer's eyes widened. A huge fleet was approaching. But it was not human, and it was not Coalition. Unknown ships filled deep space. Their designs matched no known civilization. Their numbers were impossible to count. Millions of dark vessels advanced through the void. Like a storm covering the stars, fear spread through every command center. Human officers immediately recognized the threat. The Coalition did not, but they soon learned. Admiral Ward activated a secure transmission. His face appeared before Coalition leaders. For the first time since the war began, his voice carried urgency. "The war is over." Several alien leaders looked confused. Ward continued, "If we keep fighting each other, every civilization in this galaxy will die." One leader shouted, "What are those ships?" Ward looked directly into the camera. "The reason humanity built the last fleet." Silence followed. The Admiral took a deep breath. Then he revealed the secret humanity had protected for generations, thousands of years ago. Human explorers discovered an ancient warning hidden inside First One ruins. The warning spoke of an enemy, a species from outside the galaxy. A species that destroyed civilizations wherever it traveled. The First Ones fought them millions of years ago. The war nearly erased both sides. In the end, the enemy vanished. But the warning remained. One day they would return. Most governments dismissed the story. Humanity did not, for centuries. Humans secretly prepared. They built hidden shipyards. They gathered resources. They created the last fleet. And now the ancient enemy had finally arrived. As if responding to Ward's words, the unknown fleet accelerated. Millions of dark ships moved closer. Then every sensor detected a terrifying signal. The enemy fleet was preparing weapons, not thousands, not millions, but enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. Commander Virax slowly sat down. For the first time in his life, he understood the truth. Humanity had never been preparing to conquer the galaxy. Humanity had been preparing to save it. Then the ancient structure transmitted one final message, a message heard across every world. Extinction-level threat confirmed. All defensive assets authorized. Final war protocol initiated. And beyond the stars, the enemy fleet opened fire. Humanity's last fleet faced the entire galaxy alone. Part 4. The day the galaxy stood together, the stars themselves seemed to tremble. Across the darkness of space, millions of enemy ships opened fire. Countless beams of energy raced toward the Sol system. The attack looked like a giant storm made of light. Every Coalition commander watched in horror. The enemy fleet was still far away. Yet its weapons could already strike across impossible distances. Nobody had ever seen technology like this. Inside the Coalition flagship, Commander Varric stood frozen. His war against humanity suddenly felt meaningless. A few hours earlier, he had come to destroy Earth. Now he was watching an enemy capable of destroying the entire galaxy. Around him, officers waited for orders for the first time. Nobody cared about defeating humanity. Survival had become the only goal, meanwhile. Deep inside Earth's command center, Grand Admiral Ethan Ward remained calm. He had feared this day for many years. Now it had finally arrived. The ancient enemy was real. And it was stronger than even humanity's worst predictions. The giant First One structure immediately reacted. Thousands of massive weapons turned toward the incoming attack. Blue energy flowed across its surface. Then the ancient defense system fired. A wall of light appeared between the Sol system and the approaching enemy barrage. Seconds later, the attacks collided. Space exploded with blinding flashes. Shockwaves spread in every direction. Several nearby moons shook from the force. Billions watched from distant worlds. The battle had begun. And it was already larger than any war in recorded history. The enemy's first attack was stopped, but the victory did not last long. New sensor reports flooded every command center. The enemy fleet was accelerating. Millions of ships were moving directly toward the galaxy. At their current speed, entire sectors would fall within weeks. The Coalition Council immediately called an emergency meeting. This time, nobody argued, nobody insulted humanity. Nobody talked about old wars. Fear had erased every political difference, one by one. Alien leaders appeared on the giant screen. Then Grand Admiral Ward joined them. The room fell silent, only a day earlier. Many of these leaders wanted him dead. Now they needed his help. An elderly alien leader finally spoke. "What do we do?" Ward looked at the gathered rulers. "The same thing humanity has been preparing to do for centuries." "And what is that?" Another leader asked. Ward answered without hesitation. "We fight together." Silence followed. Then something unexpected happened. Commander Varric stood up. For years he had commanded the Coalition's war against humanity. Millions had died because of his decisions. Now he looked directly at Ward. "The Coalition fleet is yours." Several leaders stared at him in shock. Varric continued, "If humanity truly prepared for this threat, then humanity should lead this war, one by one." Other leaders nodded. Soon every representative agreed. For the first time in galactic history, humanity was placed in command of the United Galaxy. Back in the Sol system, orders spread quickly. Thousands of fleets began changing formation. Former enemies moved side by side. Ships that had fought each other for years now prepared to fight together. The galaxy's greatest alliance was born in a single day. But the enemy was not waiting. New reports arrived every minute. Entire star systems near the galactic edge had gone silent. Exploration probes disappeared. Listening stations stopped transmitting. The Dark Fleet was advancing faster than expected. Then another problem appeared, a terrible problem. Scientists studying the enemy finally completed their analysis. The results shocked everyone. The enemy ships were not controlled by living beings. They were machines, ancient machines. Each vessel operated as part of a giant network. Destroying one ship changed nothing. Millions more instantly adapted. Humanity's last fleet faced the entire galaxy alone. Part 5. The Secret of the Sleeping King. The command center fell completely silent. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. Every officer stared at the ancient words displayed on the screen. The Sleeping King. The name alone felt wrong, as if it carried a warning hidden inside it. For thousands of years, humanity had studied the ancient gateway. They had explored hundreds of worlds connected to it. They had uncovered lost technologies and forgotten records. Yet nobody had ever found a direct reference to the Sleeping King. Until now. Grand Admiral Ethan Ward looked at the ancient map once more. The enemy fleet was racing toward the gateway. Millions of dark ships ignored nearby targets. They ignored Earth. They ignored human fleets. They seemed focused on only one objective: reaching whatever existed beyond the gateway. An officer finally broke the silence. "Sir, do they know something we don't?" Ward did not answer immediately. Because the truth was simple, they probably did. The ancient enemy had fought the first ones millions of years ago. If anyone understood the meaning of the Sleeping King, it would be them. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, panic was spreading. News networks reported the latest discoveries. Citizens watched endless broadcasts. Entire governments declared emergencies. Many people believed the end had already arrived. Others hoped the United Fleet could stop the threat. But nobody truly knew what would happen next. Back inside the Coalition Council chamber, the leaders of the galaxy gathered once again. This time their faces showed fear instead of pride. The old war against humanity felt like a distant memory. Now every civilization shared the same nightmare. One leader looked toward Admiral Ward. "What exactly is beyond the gateway?" Ward folded his arms. "We don't know." Several leaders looked shocked. "You built your entire defense strategy around that gateway," one said. "How can you not know?" Ward nodded. "Because humanity never explored its deepest sectors." The room became quiet. Then Ward revealed another secret. Decades earlier, human explorers had tried to investigate the unexplored regions beyond the gateway. Only one expedition returned. The survivors spoke of strange signals, massive abandoned structures, and entire star systems that appeared frozen in time. After that mission, all exploration had been forbidden. No ship was allowed to travel deeper. The risk was considered too great. One alien leader leaned forward. "What scared humanity enough to stop exploring?" Ward looked directly at him. The explorers refused to talk about what they saw. Silence followed. The answer was worse than anyone expected. Even now, nobody knew the full truth. Suddenly, a communication officer rushed into the room. "Admiral, urgent report." Ward turned. The officer activated a holographic display. Everyone immediately understood why he looked terrified. The enemy fleet had split into three enormous groups. One group continued toward the gateway. The second moved toward nearby human defenses. The third group was heading directly toward the giant First One structure. A scientist quickly analyzed the movement patterns. Then his face became pale. "They aren't attacking randomly." Ward narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" The scientist enlarged several sections of the map. "They know exactly where they're going." The realization spread across the room. The enemy was following a plan. A plan prepared long before the current war, which meant one thing. The machines had returned for a specific reason. And that reason was connected to the Sleeping King. Hours later, the first major battle began. Near the outer edge of the Sol system, thousands of United ships intercepted an enemy advance force. Human vessels fought beside Coalition warships. The old hatred between species disappeared under a storm of laser fire. Explosions lit the darkness. Entire fleets clashed across millions of kilometers. The battle quickly became brutal. Enemy ships moved with perfect coordination. Every attack felt calculated. Every loss made them smarter, despite their numbers. The United Fleet struggled to slow them down. Then something unexpected happened. The ancient First One structure activated once again. Massive energy surged through its giant rings. A powerful beam crossed space and struck the enemy formation. Thousands of machine vessels vanished instantly. For the first time, the enemy advance slowed. Shears erupted across countless ships. Hope returned, but only for a moment, because new sensor readings arrived. And they were worse than anything seen before, far beyond the battlefield. Deep inside the unexplored regions connected to the gateway, Something had awakened. The energy signature was enormous. Larger than planets, larger than stars. Larger than anything known to science. Every sensor in the galaxy detected it. Even civilian equipment picked up the signal. The entire command center fell silent. One officer whispered, "That's impossible." Another checked the data again. Then again, the numbers remained unchanged. The energy source was real, and it was moving slowly, steadily toward the gateway. Grand Admiral Ward stared at the screen. A feeling of dread settled inside him. The ancient warning echoed in his mind. Do not awaken the sleeping king. But someone had already done exactly that. The enemy fleet suddenly changed formation. Millions of machine ships stopped attacking. Instead, they turned toward the distant signal, as if responding to a command, as if they had been waiting for it. Then a transmission spread across every communication channel in the galaxy. The message did not come from humanity. It did not come from the coalition. It did not even come from the machine fleet. The source was the mysterious signal itself. At first, only static filled the speakers. Then a single deep voice emerged, ancient, cold, and powerful enough to send fear through billions of hearts. The voice spoke only one sentence: "I have slept long enough," across the galaxy. Every screen suddenly went dark, and somewhere beyond the gateway, something enormous opened its eyes. Humanity's last fleet faced the entire galaxy alone. Part 6. The King Who Ruled Before Time. For several seconds after the transmission ended, the galaxy remained silent. No broadcasts, no military reports, no communication between fleets. It was as if the stars themselves had stopped breathing. Then every screen suddenly came back online. Emergency alarms echoed across thousands of command centers. People everywhere demanded answers, but nobody had any. The mysterious voice had spoken only 7 words, yet those words shook the entire galaxy. "I have slept long enough." Deep beyond the ancient gateway, the enormous energy signature continued moving. Every sensor tracked it, every scientist studied it, and every result led to the same terrifying conclusion. Whatever had awakened was beyond anything the galaxy had ever known. Inside Earth's command center, Grand Admiral Ethan Ward stood before the main display. For the first time since the crisis began, he looked genuinely worried. An officer approached him. "Sir, we have recovered additional First One records." Ward immediately turned. "What do they say?" The officer activated a hologram. Ancient symbols appeared across the room. Most of the text was damaged, but several sections remained readable. A historian quickly translated the surviving lines. The room fell silent as the words appeared. The king existed before the First Empire. The king existed before the First War. The king existed before recorded history. Several officers exchanged nervous looks. One scientist shook his head. "That can't be literal." Nobody answered him. Because nobody was sure anymore, the ancient records continued. The king was not created. The king was discovered. Fear spread through the room. Even the historians looked uncomfortable. A younger officer finally spoke. "What exactly is the king?" The historian swallowed hard. "The records never say. Every reference ends the same way." "What way?" Ward asked. The historian looked toward him, with a warning to never wake it. Meanwhile, near the gateway, the United Fleet continued fighting. Human battleships led the defense line. Coalition warships protected their flanks. Together, they formed the largest military force in galactic history. Yet even this force struggled. The machine enemy kept advancing. Millions of ships attacked without fear, without hesitation, without mercy. Entire battle groups vanished every hour. The losses were becoming impossible to replace. Commander Virax watched the battle from his flagship. Only days earlier he had been humanity's enemy. Now he fought beside them. He looked at the tactical display and clenched his fists. "The machines aren't trying to win this battle," he said. An officer looked confused. "Then what are they doing?" Varix pointed toward the gateway. They're buying time. At that exact moment, a new report arrived from deep space. The massive energy source beyond the gateway had accelerated. The sleeping king was moving faster. Much faster, back in Earth's command center. Another discovery shocked everyone. Scientists studying the machine fleet uncovered hidden data inside several destroyed vessels. The information was incomplete, but one message survived. A message created millions of years earlier. The room became silent as the translation appeared. Containment failure detected. King awakening probability increasing. Extermination protocol authorized. Ward narrowed his eyes. Extermination protocol? The lead scientist nodded. Sir, I think we've misunderstood everything. What do you mean? The scientist took a deep breath. The machines may not be invaders. The room froze. Nobody spoke. The scientist continued. What if they were created to stop the king? Several officers immediately protested, but they're destroying entire systems. The scientist nodded. I know. But what if they believe that's the only way to prevent something even worse? The realization spread through the room. For millions of years, the galaxy believe. Humanity's last fleet faced the entire galaxy alone. Part 7. Humanity's final stand. The entire galaxy watched in fear. The sleeping king was approaching the gateway. Behind it followed millions of machine ships. Entire fleets looked tiny compared to the giant ancient being. For the first time in history, every civilization understood the same truth. If the king escaped, the galaxy would not survive. Inside Earth's command center, Grand Admiral Ethan Ward stood before the main screen. The message from the First One defense system still glowed before him. Human Guardians, you are the final key. For years, humanity had believed they were preparing to fight the machine fleet. Now the truth was finally clear. Humanity's true purpose had always been something else. They were the Guardians chosen to keep the sleeping king imprisoned. An officer looked toward Ward. Sir, the final weapon is activating. The Admiral nodded. Show me. The giant display changed. Deep beyond the gateway, something massive emerged from the darkness. At first, many believed it was another ancient ship. Then the full image appeared. Gasps filled command centers across the galaxy. The object was not a ship. It was an entire artificial world. A colossal fortress built by the First Ones millions of years ago. Its surface was covered with enormous weapons. Ancient defense systems awakened one by one. Blue energy flowed across continents made of metal. The structure had only one purpose: to imprison the sleeping king forever. Meanwhile, the machine fleet accelerated. Millions of vessels rushed toward the fortress. For the first time, they completely ignored every other target. Commander Varix stared at the tactical map. They're trying to stop the prison from activating, Ward nodded. They know this is their last chance. Across the battlefield, the United Fleet received new orders. Every human ship, every coalition vessel, every surviving warship would defend the fortress. No matter the cost, moments later, the largest battle in galactic history began. Millions of ships collided across the stars. Explosions filled the darkness. Entire fleets disappeared in waves of fire. Human destroyers charged directly into enemy formations. Coalition battleships protected critical defense lines. Pilots from dozens of species fought side by side. The old wars no longer mattered. The survival of the galaxy depended on this single battle. Hours passed. The fighting grew more desperate. The machine fleet kept advancing, even with heavy losses. Their numbers seemed endless slowly. They pushed closer to the fortress, closer to the gateway, closer to the sleeping king inside the fortress. Ancient systems continued activating. Huge rings surrounded the structure. Power levels climbed higher and higher, but there was a problem. The prison required one final activation key. A living commander had to manually trigger the system. And once activated, there would be no escape. The person inside would be trapped forever. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the meaning. It was a one-way mission. An officer looked toward Ward. Before anyone could speak, the admiral smiled. "I'll do it." Several people immediately protested. But Ward raised his hand. For centuries, humanity had protected this secret. For centuries, they had prepared for this moment. Now the responsibility belonged to him. Minutes later, his flagship approached the fortress. Outside, the battle continued raging. Thousands of ships sacrificed themselves to keep the path open. Many crews knew they would never return. Yet none of them turned away, because they knew what was at stake. Then the sleeping king finally reached the gateway. For the first time, the entire galaxy saw it clearly. The giant being looked like a living world wrapped in ancient metal. Its surface shifted constantly. Its glowing eyes were larger than cities. Its presence alone distorted space. Millions watched in terrified silence. Then the king spoke. Its voice echoed across every star system. "You cannot stop what has already begun." The words sent chills through billions of people. But humanity did not retreat. Ward's flagship entered the heart of the fortress. Ancient systems recognized his command codes. The final sequence began, across the battlefield. Every surviving ship focused on protecting the fortress. The machine fleet launched one final assault. The sleeping king accelerated. Everything came down to a single moment. Then Ward placed his hand on the activation console. The ancient system spoke. Final authorization accepted. Prison protocol beginning. Outside, the fortress erupted with light. Gigantic rings activated around the gateway. Energy storms filled space. The sleeping king tried to break free, but it was too late. Massive chains of energy wrapped around the ancient being. The machine fleet desperately attacked the prison. Thousands of ships were destroyed every second, yet the process continued. The fortress used power gathered over millions of years. Nothing could stop it now, the king roared in anger. Entire star systems felt the shockwave. But the prison continued closing slowly, relentlessly. The gateway transformed into a giant seal. The sleeping king disappeared behind walls of light. Then the machine fleet vanished with it. One final flash crossed the stars. And suddenly, everything became quiet. The battle was over. The threat was gone. The galaxy had survived days later. Celebrations spread across countless worlds. Humanity was no longer seen as a weak species. No longer ignored, no longer underestimated. The truth had become clear, while others fought for power. Humanity had spent centuries preparing to protect everyone. Grand Admiral Ethan Ward never returned. His sacrifice became legend. Statues were built across hundreds of worlds. Schools taught his story. Entire civilizations honored his name. And for thousands of years afterward, whenever people spoke about the darkest day in galactic history, they remembered one simple truth: when the entire galaxy stood on the edge of extinction, humanity stood alone and saved them all.